Hello,
Okay. So,
my
um,
name is my name is Violette Haldane, and today we are speaking with State Representative Joshua Hall, and he will be interviewed by Ms. Chris Ann Folks. The purpose of this discussion is to help our community understand more about how local government works. This came about after the 2018 elections. We had a community conversation, and the audience um, suggested that we have this type of discussion so they could learn more about what the various roles are in government and what each role is responsible for. So this is a follow-up to that, and I'm going to hand it over to Chris Ann, who will be our moderator for this event. Thank you.
um, Good morning, Mr. Hall. My name is
Morning.
Christina Oaks, and I am a high school student at Suffield High School. I
Good
am
to meet
a
you.
junior, uh, and just get to know how do you do your job, what your job is, and um, I want to get that out to the public so they can know, like when they're voting,
Absolutely.
who they're voting for. So,
Good morning, Chris Ann, and good morning, Violette. As you indicated, I'm State Representative Joshua Hall. I represent the 7th District here in Hartford.
what were the steps that you had to take to become a state representative, and how did you become a state representative? Like, was it like an election, or how did you go about
So,
it?
so thank you for that question. So my first foray into politics, and I think that's where pretty much everyone gets started, is that I successfully ran with a team of folks for the 7th District Democratic Town Committee. So that was my first foray into politics. And essentially, the purpose of the town committee is to endorse candidates for various positions, whether it be register of voters, board of ed, state representative, and state senator. So fast forward, I think about 5 years. State Representative McCrory at the time, uh, well, actually, let me back up. State Senator Eric Coleman resigned with the ambition of becoming a judge, which he successfully did. So his seat became open. State Representative Doug McCrory ran for his Senate seat, and he was successful. And so that state representative seat opened up for the 7th District, and so I ran. I I wanted to be the Democratic nominee for that position. I wasn't successful in being the Democrat nominee. However, I was endorsed by the Working Families Party, and so there was an election, and it was a three-way race between myself, former State Representative Kenneth Green, and the endorsed Democrat candidate Ricky Pinckney. It was very heartfelt and hard-fought campaign, and fortunately, I was successful in that endeavor. So that's how I became the state representative. And so just so we understand, Connecticut is different from a lot of states with regard to how campaigns are run, but more importantly, how they're funded. We have a state elections program, which essentially allows candidates to raise a certain amount of money. And that money specifically is if you raise $5,000 and then get 150 $5 donations from, or minimum $5 donations from Hartford residents, as an example, the state gives you essentially the money to run a campaign. And so what that allows for, it opens the process up. We know that money in politics matters, and especially for those who have lesser means, and that sometimes is a hesitancy about running. But I think Connecticut provides an opportunity for a lot of folks to get engaged and get involved, especially at the state representative, state senator level, because you just essentially have to raise money, and that money allows you to get your message out to voters across the district that you choose or wish to represent.
Okay, thank you. Um, so I know that being a state representative, uh, you're not like in charge of an entire state, but for like a specific district or area. So what area are you in charge of?
So we don't phrase it or frame it that way as being in charge of something. What is we represent? The voters of the district vote us to represent their voice at the state capitol. And so we go out, we campaign, we share our vision, we share our ideas about how we want to improve the district. The district I represent is the 7th district in Hartford. That essentially covers the entire Blue Hills area, parts of Upper Albany, parts of Clay Arsenal, parts of Northeast,
Okay.
parts of Asylum Hill, and parts of downtown. So it's a very oblong, straight district. Most districts have a similar shape, but mine is very interesting. For example, the state capitol is in my district, so it crosses a lot of different neighborhoods in Hartford.
Okay. That's good to know. I did not know that.
Mhm.
So what are your responsibilities as state representative?
My official titles first are I'm assistant majority leader, but I'm also the vice chair of the Labor and Public Employees Committee. And so as vice chair, if the chair is not able to conduct a meeting, as an example, a committee meeting, then that responsibility falls to me. I am also on the Transportation and Planning and Development Committee. And so part of that is reviewing legislation, listening to constituents, listening to special interests as lobbyists or other folks who care about certain issues, and taking all that information in and processing it and trying to make the best decision possible, specifically for the folks in my district or for the state of Connecticut at large. I sit on the Transportation Committee and the Planning and Development Committee, and I'm the vice chair of the Labor and Public Employees Committee.
Did you guys have a meeting to like vote on like how you guys would allow people, Hartford citizens, to take the bus without paying? Like, were you involved in that?
Yes. So that's a conversation that that is a consideration that comes before the Transportation Committee, but it also goes to several other committees, because when you talk about any cost, that is something that the Appropriations Committee, and the Appropriations Committee appropriates the money or determines essentially what the budget is for the state of Connecticut, and so what the impact of free transportation, as an example, would be. And so yes, involved in those conversations.
Okay, thank you for that. Also, do you as a state representative, do you have a term limit? Like,
Yes, so we run for re-election every 2 years, and so this November I am up for re-election. There was a primary, however, I did not have a primary opponent, so I did not participate in the August 11th primary. And as it stands right now, I don't have an opponent for the November election either. So I'm presumed to be the candidate on election day, and of course, because right now I don't have an opponent, I'm presumed to be the for another term. I'll be reelected for another term.
okay, your job, like, is there anything that the community needs to know, like, that I haven't asked?
So
Like, how does it work?
yeah, so I would say that we're in unprecedented time in our nation, in our state, in our city, just with all the challenges and obstacles that we're facing. But there are some very important things that folks in our community need to make sure they do. Number one is vote. That's absolutely extremely important, especially at this time. But the other thing is to fill out the census. So what people think the census is just counting people, which is absolutely, that's what it is. But the reason they count people is to determine the resources that come to a particular state, city, town. And so if we're not counting ourselves, that means that the resources that we get are going to be less. And that means that we're not going to have the representation that we need to have at the federal level. So if you're viewing this video, please fill out the census. It's extremely, extremely important for the resources that places like Hartford and the state of Connecticut receive.
Okay, and what does the term "all politics is local" mean to you?
So as an example, and that's why the census is so extremely important. Resources, to some extent, flow from the federal government, and so they send money to Connecticut, and so then Connecticut sends money to the city, and so it's your local representatives that are actually determining how those resources, how that money is utilized. So as a state representative, part of our task is to make sure we send as many resources to our district, but more specifically our city, so they have the resources to address the challenges, the issues that folks in the community want addressed and want dealt with. And so, but that power rests largely with your mayor and your city council. And so the mayor and the city council are determining the resources that they get from the state, which myself and the rest of the Hartford delegation make sure the city of Hartford has. They determine how those resources are being used. And so when it says all politics are local, it's your local mayor and your local city council and your board of ed, for that matter, who are determining the resources and the decisions that impact you as a student and other constituents, your lives on a daily basis.
Okay, so I know it's not up to you as a state representative to determine like how the money is used, but you have standards and stuff.
Right. So let me clarify. So there are resources that we send that we specifically say that this money is for X or this money is for Y. But when I say, but those in comparison, that is small compared to when we send municipal aid. And so municipal aid is just that, aiding the municipality or aiding the city of Hartford. When we send ECS, the Education Cost Sharing Grant, that is money that goes specifically to the Board of Education. And so we don't control how those, and so the bulk of the money we send, we don't have a say in how it's spent, right? However, there is money that, for example, when we get asked for different allotments as far as bond dollars are concerned. And so that helps the development at Westbrook Village or Bowles Park, and you see that housing development, well, that comes through bond money. And so we can specifically say that these dollars are meant to support this individual project. But the vast majority of the money that's sent to places like Hartford, Windsor, or Bloomfield, for that matter, come in the form of municipal aid or ECS grants, and we don't have a say in how that money is spent. The local town officials and the Board of Education determine how those resources are used.
How do they decide like how the money is spent? But you just explained that you don't have a say in how it's spent. So
no, I don't have a say, but I mean, they have their city council meetings that are held twice a month, their Board of Education meetings, and all of that information is transparent and public as far as the determinations that they're made and the decision-making process. And so the community has the ability to comment and address and say that, you know what, we need, for example, we have a issue with cars speeding in the Blue Hills neighborhood, right? And so one of the things that folks talked about is how do we get more speed bumps or speed tables or speed humps. And so a few years ago, there was a grant that came through that allowed for that to happen. And so people speaking up about the issues and challenges their particular neighborhood or streets are facing and bringing those issues to their NRZ or their local community groups, and then making sure that local officials are addressing and hearing those issues. And so that's how that process works. And that's extremely important.
So the people come up with a complaint and they make a complaint to their local official. And then the local officials make the complaint to who?
So their local officials, if they don't have the resources to address that, they would then call on the state representatives and say that, you know what, we need money for this, for X, Y, or Z. And then we go to our, at the state level, we then petition to ensure that those resources come to the city to try to address those issues. So that's how that process would work.
Okay.
So in those types of circumstances, it's like it's a bottom up as opposed to top down. So as elected representatives, what we always cherish and we always want is community engagement in terms of what are the needs of the community and what does the community think it needs to make sure that the quality of life is enhanced. We have our own ideas, that's like everybody, but hearing from the community as far as what the needs really are is extremely important and beneficial, because at the end of the day, we're here to represent your voice, not our own voice, right? And so that's why it's important.
How do we let people know how they should go about voting for their local officials?
So during campaign season, so election materials are sent out of letting folks know when the election is and why they should support a particular candidate. So all that information is sent out. But just as a representative, part of my responsibility is to ensure a constant communication and constituent engagement. So we often send out newsletters with regard to the things that we're working on, the things that we're doing. And trying to make sure that folks are abreast of the different things that are happening at the state level and how that impacts them in their community and in their city.
Okay. Well, thank you.
No, thank you.
Meeting today. I'm going to hand it back over to Ms. Haldane.
Thank you, Chrisanne. It was great talking with you, and I look forward to the great things that you are going to do in your future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chrisanne. Excellent interview. And thank you, State Representative Hall. Really appreciate you taking the time out today to come and speak with us. And I know that you're busy, and I think we learned a lot today from this conversation, and we will be in touch with you. And we do have our takeaway that our voice counts and our voice matters. Continued success with your political career. Thank you very much.